Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we are going to be doing something a little bit different. You may recognize this boat from another one of my videos. It is the crabbing vessel that Sheppey 5 made. He is an admin on my Discord server. Him and I bounce ideas off each other all the time. And he developed this boat. Now what's really cool about it is it has this really awesome system using the winches and pulleys to determine whether the lobster pot is sitting on the ground. Now he's given me this boat to sort of retrofit as I see fit, especially the interior. So right now, just taking a quick look at it, I do like the design work, especially with these kind of windows here. It'll make it quite easy to take the lobsters, the catch, and put them into the storage. Up front here we have electric breakers, we have the refueling ports. On this side we have more breakers and refueling. I guess it's for either side, port and starboard. Yeah, okay, so there's two different ones. This is a really cool looking device. We get some deck lights up here. Alright, and then we have the cabin up front with kind of a nice view, speed, the fuels, little displays, and then on either side we have these hatches with kind of a little compacted bedroom area on each side. So right now it's quite symmetrical. Now over here we can turn on our systems. Home, okay. So it's one of these neat microcontrollers that uses kind of, it's almost like a computer, so that's really nice. We got a radio kind of like the one I use. Beacon, I'm guessing this is maybe for the lights or for fishing, not quite sure, I'll have to look into this. Over here we have another one of these computers that are independent on each other, so that's kind of neat. Oh, here's the fish finder. So fish finder's here. I'll have to see what this is. Anyway, ignition. And then if we go here, we can drive the boat. Now what's interesting actually is you have to hold it, hold W in order to go. It's not a set throttle, so we'll see. I may adjust that. I don't know if he wants me to adjust it, but I'll kind of do what I see fit here, and then we'll see what we end up with. But it does kind of stop as soon as you let go, so I'm not sure if that's something. We'll see. Anyway, that is the vessel. Now here you have all down. You can drop these down, and this is the ingenious system. You see here it has the pulley length, and once you get it down to a certain level, it'll just stop, and it knows it's the bottom. So very neat and smart system. From the exterior, I really do like how it looks actually. I think it's a great design. It is using the same awesome hull Catamaran design that I've used on some of my other vessels that I made with him. So I really do like that, but I think what I can do is polish up some of the paintwork for starters, and we'll see what colors I'll kind of think of in the end. But up until that point, we'll kind of get some, let's see what comes of it. So that's one thing. Now the lights in my vessels, I have this preset color that I always use kind of to give it a bit more of a halogen glow, sort of more modern, almost like an LED light rather than your standard halogen. Sorry, so not halogen, but those modern blue tinted cold, call it, lights. But in cabins and private spaces, I actually prefer the warm glow because it's a little cozier after all. So that is a quick thing to do on the exterior. Now I do like all these spotlights. I wonder if they're aimed down. No, they're not. So we can actually aim them. I'll add a microcontroller for that. Just a simple pivot aim. And I'll just put all my added microcontrollers up here, and then in the afterwards I'll hide them somewhere a little bit better. I do think that if they're aimed a little bit downward, especially here on the sides, it'll help us to sort of see what we're trying to catch. One thing I don't see is any equipment storage or anything like that, so what I usually do if you follow my builds is I put kind of under the seat storage. I don't want to steal the show too much here with the coloring, but I always find that having a bit of a two-tone color breaks things up a little bit nicer. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. We will add some decal and a brand, but one thing before I do any of that is, what if we are crabbing up in the Arctic? We don't want the fellas to freeze, so I will put some heaters. I'm not sure if there's even a heater inside here. Okay, that display was the touchscreen beacon locator and transmitter system. Inside the interior, I always paint all of my dashboard elements the same color as the display. I do love this system that he developed here for the crane operator to use the gantry gantry hopper suction and hopper securing magall. Over here we got buttons, so that's a nice system. On the RSV Atoll, I actually developed this system, which is using the exact same thing, just a bit different organized, including what looks like arrow keys, and then the suction and the button here for securing the gantry. Over here we have fish and freezer, so we could actually put the hopper readings, so when you're standing in front of this, it actually tells you that you are in fact removing the lobsters. So we're going to go back to the boat and throw in the system that I developed, well, that I modified. Sheppey's the owner, he started off this, and I'm just now taking it and putting it here. So in his system, we can see where it's located up there. It's the fish, so let's see. So with my version of the microcontroller, we can simply make some changes here. So it says this goes to the antenna, which it does. That goes to that controller. This goes to the toggle, the magall, which is right here. So rather than being that button. And then what else do we have? Frequency, TX, and that's it. On this side, we just have to take this thing, plug it in here. Obviously plug in the electrical into these new ones and take this into the hopper system, and that should be good to go. This one here is for the gantry crane suction, which we've plugged in there, so that is pretty much it. That goes there, and that's kind of the new and improved system. One of my pet peeves is the fact that these hoppers are modeled with these holes, so I'm just gonna go through and start painting them. Now that the hoppers are painted, I'm almost wondering if this whole thing should be painted just to, again, break up the deck. One thing I do on my vessels is add a very light colored gray on the bottom to just kind of look like, it's not a baseboard, it's a boat, but at least to break the texture. All right, looks good to me. If I turn this on, yeah, it actually kind of has the vibes from one of my vessels. So of course I like it. Sheppey's free to change it if he doesn't like it, but I think that as far as an interior space, this looks pretty good. Sometimes the game limitations has weird stuff like this, where we just end up having to either live with that being painted and kind of not fitting, or we paint them white like that, and then it kind of looks at least a little better at the expense of this up here, which is kind of meant to be either some sort of rubber layer where, you know, you could stand on without falling off or something. But I think I like that. Alternatively, what we can do is use this. You got to apply it to both sides. Now, one thing that I tend to do, and maybe people disagree or agree, but I tend to do it, is paint the windows on my vessels so it's not just white. I put like kind of the frame to be dark colored. So I'll go ahead and put this, color these in as such. in my opinion, that just makes it a little more polished, and I could paint this up here so it's continuous and it looks more like the bridge area. Now this I'd probably paint too. And then you end up with that kind of weird area there. Alternatively, what we can try is to just have regular blocks here and then continue this out and just integrate it into this system like that. And then in that case, we actually wouldn't even need these. We could just paint the whole thing with that and just have that sort of end. Now this thing is kind of open here, so what I'm thinking is putting a railing in this area just to close it off a little bit more. And then if we do that, of course, these ones should be changed into the regular style like this. But now, from the inside, you can't fall out. Again, on the note of not breaking, of just not having things pure white, even if white is more realistic with the materials that boats are made out of, like kind of that fiberglass, I just like to add pops of shading for the reason it just makes it look a little more interesting to look at. So even like the winches like that, I think that they work a little nicer. So we can do that. That is a lot of lights. I'd almost say that's too many lights, especially if we end up with people using this on lower end PCs and then having tons of having the warning for like too many lights. So I'll just actually move this one and this one, and then just to make the spacing identical, which I really tend to try to do that, we'll move these to the left by one. Now, one thing that I tend to do is at least look at what a vessel, say a real life vessel, would have, and then kind of try to make something that goes along with it. So when you have a crabbing vessel, you'll probably want to sink so the employees can wash their hands and kind of not have, and even just wash the crab as they're putting things away. So we can go and add just a little sink area here out of just these simple pieces. We'll see if it looks any good. Okay, well, never mind. This thing inadvertently looks like something else, so we're gonna have to do a quick remodeling. What I could do is have it in this region. We could put the wash down table here. There we have it. So that can kind of work. In fact, I don't want any confusion with what this is and the shape. And I've continued to traumatize myself, so now I've actually added 2 more sinks in this area here, and now the overall idea of this looks a little better in my opinion, so that will work. And we have a lot of spaces now to wash the lobsters and crabs down. Getting away from that topic, I think that this now looks pretty great. I added a little ledge here, did that work there, we got the railings there. Overall, I'm quite happy with this space now. I did just put these ladder bits there just to kind of give a little extra visual and some other stuff. Now, I do like that Sheppey left this intake white, but what I tend to do is paint the doors just a different color just so they stand out a little bit. Actually, this will stay white, but this door I will paint, and then see that my ladder here, or little stairs, are painted and look okay. That works. I mean, this ladder is, or this step is pretty much not needed because you're just looking in there. And then it kind of gives a little clean approach to the stairs here. Again, if Sheppey, if you're watching this and you have any issue with any of this, please feel free to adjust any of it. I am totally okay with that. I don't take any responsibility for anything looking not up to your liking. All right. Orange ladders are like safety, for safety purposes. I don't know if I like them. Looks a little too industrial, like it should be next to a conveyor belt. So let's just paint them black. Black will look okay. Just so they're not the same color as everything else. Now that back there looks white, but that is fine. Or I guess we could just do that. That's probably a little better. Okay, done. I'm quite happy with this. I did add a composite node, or will add a composite node to the camera here. But I'm quite happy with this. Okay, anyways, in here is good. Oh, these windows too. I am going to paint. I don't know, I just like when the window frames are black. I just think it looks better. And then what I do in my creations is I paint around the windows. Actually not in that shade. I use a bit of a lighter shade if I recall, or even this one. So it's not identical to the window. It stands out a little bit more, but it looks better when you're looking at it from the exterior. Again, in my opinion, there are many different styles in Stormworks, but if I'm going to be doing mine on this vessel, this is kind of how I would do it to make it match the rest of my boats. So let's put that all around here. And then I also personally like when the cabin is a little darker in color, just so it the focus is on looking on the outside. Paint that door gray on the inside as well, just like that. And then this is actually the same color as the baseboard that I put around the whole thing, so that kind of just ties into that space. All right, over here now we got a couple things. I'm not a huge fan of these big buttons, but I do like that Sheppey had this button be double-sided, so you could turn on the deck lights there and the bridge lights here. That works. Over here now we got some other buttons, forward spotlights. I'm just gonna go and put them into button modes, and the reason I do that is to differentiate buttons or lights from systems, let's call it. So in this case, if we put buttons, then they're easy to tell. And then down here, depending on what this is now, underwater lights, we can even put that as a button. But what I'll do is if we have any other systems, they will go in as switches. Now, I didn't notice that there were underwater lights. Oh, there are. So I'll want to apply that nice blue hue to them. In fact, the underwater ones, even a darker blue sometimes looks nice, just to give it like a really underwater-y blue feel, I guess. Let's try these. There we go. Okay. Now this looks good, and yeah, so do I leave this or do I not? You know what? I will leave this button because I think it's quite nice to be able to turn it on from the from both inside and outside. So I'm just going to leave that, but I will replace this with an instrument panel, and I'll explain why in a second. So I'm going to put an instrument panel here, and then once we got it arranged, I want to put a few things. We will put the bridge lights, and then, as I always do in my vessels, I do like having the red glow. And the reason for that is, and it's a button to disable them, because they're going to come automatically toggled. So if you spawn your ship in the night, you got at least a red light on, and then it's quite easy to navigate. It's not just pitch black. They don't waste a lot of power. And last but not least, we can put on a flip switch the heater. So that's the third item here. The fourth one we'll just remove for now. So we have these ones. You'll notice that there is no red light in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add. And what I do is I use this tint, like the dark red, because I don't want, the problem with the red is it's way too bright like this. So the darker one works quite nicely. Sometimes I will put one here as well, just so you have two of them, and then you can navigate the boat without having to have really dark lights, and they also work kind of as emergency lights as well. So you'll find that when these lights are, you can have them on and kind of still be able to evacuate without needing to start searching for light switches. Seems that these are not connected to the electricity, so I'm going to plug those in. All right, and then I do want to find if I have like emergency systems on the breaker, just because an emergency lighting is kind of, or you know what, we'll plug them right into the batteries, so we'll see where they go to the batteries. Is that batteries? Those are batteries. So I'm going to plug the red lights in directly into the batteries, so as long as the battery has juice, these red lights can be on. Okay, add my instrument panel, and number 2 were the red lights or emergency lights, so I just have to press here, not, and then add it into the microcontroller. It'll just prevent it'll make it work. It'll make them on always unless we disable them. And that will be the 2 lights that I have here. So one is here and one is right there. Heater. That is number 3, and we have 3 heaters. 1, 2, 3. And then we have our deck lights. Or no, our deck lights are the double button, our bridge lights. So 1 and 2. So with these 2 lights, this is now installed, and the one thing I need to do is plug this guy into power and then put it into the position. Just make sure it's the right position right there, and there you have it. So now we're going to be able to use those buttons and operate these systems. Again, the deck lights are kind of important, so they're on their own circuit. Now, one thing that I've noticed is people in the cabin here cannot breathe. There is no vent. So I'm just going to go ahead and take from my other vessel the system that I like to use, and we'll put it somewhere here as long as it is not intersecting with the other systems. So I just delete some of this unimportant stuff, and I will leave these flares just because the flares themselves are a useful thing to have in an emergency. Okay, position that here. Like, yeah, it's not the greatest looking. I kind of hide these things, but here they are, I suppose. We'll just have to kind of live with the 3 little horns, the 3 little prongs here on the top. Flares can go. We have a flare gun. In fact, what I do next to the door here, what I usually do is have some quick inventory items that you can reach for both in emergencies and as you're kind of going in and out of your vessel. One of them being a health, one of them being a flashlight, obviously good for emergency, another one being a radio, again for emergencies, and last but not least, I like to put a flare gun because that is kind of your final Hail Mary. If you gotta evacuate the ship, abandoned ship, you can grab whatever you need from that little kit there. Okay, so there we have that. Now the color in here, I'm gonna change it. Now I spawned in the Altalander here, and the reason I did that is because I do like this control panel system, and it does have our throttle and other stuff like that, and I think that I would want to move this out a little bit, just by 1, like that, and put a display. That's just my personal preference, but I do like to have the information right in front of me as I drive, rather than sort of having to look around to access it. We'll see how that all works. In fact, we may have to add, well, I'll see. Let's just try with this. So the window will be a bit reduced, and on the exterior we can make up for that by coloring it and seeing how that works, as long as we still have good visibility. So I'm going to put that right there. Oh, and I didn't color the ledge up here. I see. So I missed that. We're going to paint this, and we're going to paint the other side, and then we're going to paint the little window ledge all up front here. Just like that. Including this. Alright. And then this can be painted the same dark color that we have there. So that works. And the window's dark as well. So it doesn't look too bad, in my opinion, at all on the exterior. And then we're just going to kind of make sure that it continues to look good as we spawn the vessel. I think this is a pretty clean solution, and it doesn't look too bad on the exterior. You can't even tell that there is that display portion. Now what I do have to do is obviously wire it in. Right now it's still connected over to there. We're going to need to plug it into our systems here. And then not only that, we have to move the microcontroller from this vessel. I'm actually not a fan of these just because they... not a fan of how they look. I'm going to do something here and hopefully it can look a little bit better. We'll move these closer together up in here, and then after we've done that, what I want to do is add a little kind of like, almost make it look like an AC box up here. So we'll put the gas relief valve, obviously, we have to, and then up here, but trying to keep the same colors that I have. Would this work? Not loving it. But you know what? If I put this wedge, it might work. And just look like it's something protruding. Like I said, an AC unit. I mean, wish it was a little lower. But I don't want to dig into the room here. So we'll just have to live with that for now. And we'll see if we change it up afterwards. Granted, that is tall, like, and I don't like that, but what we could always do, I suppose, is use this to force it forward like that, and then put our gas valve, and then seal it off like this, and then close it all off with our little thing like this. But don't want it to be too big. That's kind of my one constraint. I want to keep it looking natural. Like, even that could work, I suppose. I don't know. That still looks clunky. So we're down to that. Maybe we just leave it like that. Even though it has the hole there, just ignore it, I suppose. So I can see this is actually a diesel electric because it's feeding directly to these electric motors instead of to the engines. So what I can do is take this absolute value, and this is what will be displayed on my little display here. And if I just set the W and S, let's say 40% throttle, but sticky, I will remove my little Lua script here that has the Alta Industrial, and instead I'm just going to go directly to the monitor, so we don't need any of that, and that should make it a little easier. Okay, spawning it in, now we can make our way to the bridge here, the cabin. Let's see. So, systems. Alright. Alright, it just shoots up. So I still have to turn down the sensitivity. Alright, but it does let us choose. So I do like that. Personally, I just think that it's nice to be able to leave the throttle, like just leave it in general and have the boat continue on. For smaller vessels, I understand not having it, but here I think it would be pretty nice to have. We just go ahead and put some little details in like that. So here we are, driving along. Since it's diesel electric, now the generators are working. We can see the display here is reading our information, including calculating the fuel we have left, but this number isn't the right number. In here it seems to be good. Now we have the nodes there. Yes, we have the speed up there, but we have it down here as well, so we almost don't need this. The starboard fuel and this information, I do see its importance. Also, look how many bodies there are. Oh my. We're definitely going to have to add some of the, well, add one of the body or physics map icon block. That's the one. Let's put the one map icon block somewhere in here, hide it, so then it appears and we don't have to constantly see a bunch of different things for each one of these. Alright, like I said, in here the total fuel we have is 7800 and 7800. So in our microcontroller here, I will put 15,700, so that's our total fuel. And that should read okay. Now some of the colors actually got deleted, which is interesting. It's almost as if it didn't save, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, like I said, this speed now is irrelevant. We don't need that one. We have better ones that are going to tell us, well, the display itself. And with that, now this value from this fuel gauge can go to the left side here with its accompanying engines, and then this one can go to the other side with its accompanying engines, and then the one straight ahead from us could either be left empty, or we can decide something else to put here above our heads that is relevant or more pressing. Now the bridge is kind of looking close to what I would think. The one additional bit that I would probably add is to put 2 seats at least, so you can have your crew have a break, sit down, and especially strap in if it is super terrible conditions. So just a very simple thing like that. It doesn't have to be fancy. Let's actually use a colored block, the same color as the seat frame, just like that. And then the seat itself, we can put cream, or like I said, some sort of vinyl or leather. And then at least you can sit there as the boat's driving, if you're not on the actual helm here, and have a break. Now down here, these areas I left for last. We have 2 compartments right now fully identical, but I definitely want to rework them, just because I think in their current state they are too simplistic and too symmetrical. Before we even start with the cabins, we have to note that right now there is no flow of oxygen. There is no ventilation, so right now you pretty much be out of luck if you're trying to breathe down here, which is obviously a problem. So we'll have to add a little vent somewhere. But in addition to that, my gut feeling just looking at this is, yes, they are symmetrical, which is good. I mean, they're 2 different berths, but I could see some wanting to do something. Let's see first. Can we put a window? Oh, that would be nice. A window like that would be the best. But obviously we have all this other stuff going through there, so we may need some reworking. Let's see. I guess we could put it here and have these ones just go around like that. Okay, so that would be the first step, just to create a little bit more life down here. All right. Then, in addition to that, like I said, I'd want some kind of crew quarters that are not just sleeping. You can't have beds without having a little place to rest, some sort of, whether it be the kitchen type area for coffee, but you kind of need something. Okay, let's see. All right, that doesn't look too bad. get a little bit of light. It's such a small room, and I was kind of thinking, all right, we should try to... my original thought was to bump out this area and make it taller here so people could stand. But that would not be the nicest looking. Like, if I moved that and moved that, let's see. See, I still couldn't go any taller than that. So you'd still need... see, it wouldn't work. You have this here, so at best you can have it just be a little bit larger for a little bit longer, but then you lose all this. Just looks so clean and nice up here, so I don't want to play with that. So down here we have the cabins, and for this I'm actually going to take some inspiration from the Sealander. Okay, right here we got this little kitchenette, we get a bed. I love using these warm wood colors in cabins like this to just make it feel a little more cozy. Because if you think about being in this space, now I'm 6'4", I'd not like to be compacted in a space like this. I would be pretty uncomfortable here. But having a window, having some nice wood tones would make that a little bit easier, and then you can hopefully get some rest. So I'm going to paint all that. The ladder doesn't have to go to the bottom, so we'll just make it stop like that, and that'll just give us a little bit more of a nice kind of feel there. Okay, just like that. The beds, I always use the same color that I use for the displays, just so it looks like a single frame rather than something that is kind of weird shaped, like a hospital bed almost. And then I do like putting nightstands. And what do I usually do in the nightstands? I'm sure some of you know this. I put handles on some of the things, and then not only that, I'll put little inventory, so it looks like you can, you charge your devices, charge your flashlights, whatever. So that's kind of what I put in that general area. And then we got to finish the rest of the room with wood. For the bed, I'm going to paint it a different darker color, so it's like its own different material. It's not the same as the walls, and actually the bed frame as well under here, especially because I see that Sheppey put some gear right under the beds. If we delete the bed, you can see that there's firefighting gear and Arctic gear. Now because the nightstands went here, I do want to move the gear up a little bit right here in both cases, just like that, and on both sides right here and here. Now that may have made some free space or issue here, like a hole, right? So let's fill that in to not have random voids. And here too. Perfect. All right. So now we got the gear, we got the beds synchronized in, of course, the bodies. Now one thing that I also like to do is give the mattresses a nice rich, thick sheet. But that said, we could also put a different colored sheet and reserve the nice rich carpet. And again, Sheppey, if you hate it, please change it. This is what I usually do, because again, I'm tall. I would not want to be in a space that wasn't nice and comfy. What else do we have in here? So this little wood trim to kind of break out the colors a little bit. Again, coziness. You could picture yourself being in here and it'll at least be cozy. All right, we need ventilation though. Okay, in my probing around, I found this, which is a clear shot access to the exterior, and we can put a simple gas filter and allow the cabin itself to breathe, just like that. On both sides, that'll be enough. So now we got our ventilation. All right. The last thing would be, I'm almost wondering, it would be like these are all just single cubes with nothing up against this wall. So either some kind of decoration like this makes it too crowded, or put things in the wall like inventory. My original thought was actually to have one side be a little dining kitchen area and the other side bedroom, but because it's just so shallow, the roof, that is impossible. So what we're going to do instead is not have this seat, and instead this wall will become our little kitchenette. Now if you see from here, bare minimum you'll want a fridge and a microwave. I think that is kind of just, or fridge, microwave, and coffee machine. At least you could warm up leftovers and drink coffee. That's, I think, bare minimum what we'd want to have in a boat like this. Of course, there are some other nice things that we can put, like we have in here, but getting a sink, getting a stovetop and stuff, that's a little bit fancier, and just looking at the space, I don't think we have the space for it. I tried adding a little table, a bench, something, but because this door is here, there's not really much space. I thought about having like an island kind of coming out like this with a chair here, but then it gets hit by the door. Not a fan. It also gets cluttered in here, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. It's more simple, and you know what? You get your coffee. End of the day, you can have some coffee, you can go down here, go to bed, which is nice. We do have to plug in this to the system's electrical, and once that's done, we're getting quite close. So plug these in, plug these in. Like I said, here we have the potential to put something, but do we want to? Now we're just gonna hide these. I found a space in one of these holds here, or not holds, but kind of between the engine. If it can not hit anything, that'd be quite nice. Or was it in this region? So you just have to kind of find an opening right here. This'll do. If it'll fit, it's 3 tall, so it'll be kind of the similar size, and then there we go. That can go right above there. Perfect. That all fits. Doesn't delete anything, so I can go ahead and store that in there. Hopefully doesn't affect the weight that much. In fact, what I would even do is just to break up the weight a little bit, take the other one to the other side. It is a very wide vessel, so I don't foresee too many problems with like weight balancing by one little thing like this, but if that is a problem, you could just add another row of these single cubes and now it should be identical. Okay, I've been debating by putting a massive skylight here. I think Sheppey might kill me, but let's see how that looks. I don't know if we're going for realism here or if we're going for 454 SS styling, what I like to do. So let's just say we're going for my styling, because why not? A big open sunlight like this would bring, make your people collecting the crabs maybe a little bit happier. I don't know, bring some natural light into the area. Let's just paint this, and again, Sheppey, please delete it or remove it, whatever, when I give you the file back. But to get 454 SS style in, I think this type of thing is kind of important. All right, okay, that pretty much does it. Now the engine room is the last thing. No paint other than the floors. Just gonna start off with the rat yellow engines. If anyone knows my brands, we'll go with that. And then, like I usually put, at least some detail here. Doesn't have to be crazy, but there you have it. Not perfect, but just a little bit more going on in here than just plain white. Now the other part would be when you open this door here and you see this, would be interesting just to do something like this, just so it's not, again, plain white. I don't like painting pipes because pipes sometimes, like, they fixed it a little bit, it seems. Previously, you couldn't paint over them and they'd kind of get in the way. This makes it a little bit better. Anyway, I'm happy with that. Just a simple engine room paint job. And now the last thing needed is a decal. I couldn't resist. I had to. Crabby Sheppey's. So this is Crabby Sheppey's, and it can catch all kinds of crabs and lobsters. So hopefully he likes it. We'll see. Not quite sure. It may end up being that I made it too much like one of my own creations or too much like a joke. I wonder if red would look good here. Honestly, not awful. So we'll see. We'll see what he comes up with and says. If he wants to change it, I'm a-okay with it. This was done sort of as a favor. He asked me to see if I could 454 SS eyes the interior, and I think I did it. I think right now you can have a creation that, I mean, I have a creation that I could be proud of on my own type of style and terms. So I'm good with that. We'll see. Oh, these lights, make them green. Obviously, it's good. They're running, I suppose. And one other thing, just to have less bodies, I don't see the need for two different bodies here. It would make more sense to me if they're attached. Just reduce the number of things going around here. And here we have it. Crabby Sheppey's. Let's take a look on board. This part here, I'm happy with. The shape of this looks good. A little skylight adds a bit of natural lighting. Of course, you could turn on the lights and still see everything, so that's quite good. In here, we can turn our systems on. Okay, we get the display. Little kitchenette here. Oh, I have to fix the coloring there. And then in here, we have the bridge lights that are not working. Disable red lights. Oh, that is something I overlooked. So I don't think I plugged this thing in at all. There we go. That should be a little better. Okay, this is now fixed, and you can turn the heaters on once they're connected to electricity. Bridge lights, disable the red lights. That's good. Turn the systems on. I wonder if that's going to turn on the heaters. No. Okay, anyway, we'll deal with that later. Now, I wonder if all these hoppers are full, if the back will kind of settle, just because it's leaning heavily forward. One other thing is I don't see a bilge pump in this cabin, so if water comes in, I don't see it leaving. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bilge pump that can take any water that may end up in this cabin and just remove it. Nothing too crazy. I don't really feel like filling all those hoppers, especially because it will settle a little bit to the rear, but it's not so bad right now. Thank you all for watching. I have a lot of ideas planned for upcoming creations. I have a lot of things planned for upcoming videos, so stay tuned for all that. Thank you again for watching, for staying tuned to this as I kind of went through and did some of my styling changes here. Maybe you learned something. Hopefully you learned something about my style and kind of can implement it in your own creations if you want. But I hope Sheppey likes this as I like it. I think it's a solid looking ship now, and it's quite functional. So see you next time, everyone, and happy Stormworksing.